Hey there! You know what? I think it's time for another fountain pen shootout. And today we're going to have a look at two undeniably red pens. These pens were sent to me by my friend Breck. He got these in his extended quest of finding the ultimate fountain pen, and he said, well, these might make for good shootout material because they're both red, and I mean, just look at them. The gold center band, the gold highlights, the red barrels and the red caps. I mean, clearly there's something going on here. They don't actually both have gold sections, but it's you know. Now, what I want to do here, usually with the shootouts, I just compare the two pens briefly, but because I haven't covered these, I would like to turn this into a combined shootout review. So, I'll review the pens here, very briefly, then compare them, and then do writing shootout part. I'll show you how to take them apart, you know, everything, but this will be a bit longer than usual. Let's start with the Kaigelu. This is a Kaigelu 357. Part of the pen. Well, on top is just a bit of gold, which is fairly reflective. I can see myself in there. And we have the cap, sorry, the clip. The clip is nice and springy. Feels like something you want to be maybe a little bit careful with, because, I don't know, feels like I could bend it if I would overdo that. It has the little kangaroo that Kaigelu has on their clips or somewhere on their pens. It's usually there as far as I know. Red, it's a metal body, I think. At least that was my impression. Now that I hear this, no, I think it's metal. Red barrel. Why do I keep miscalling the stuff today? Red cap, red barrel. Center band has the word Kaigelu on it, and on the other side it says 357. Get the barrel, nice and tapered. I kind of like that. And then again, a gold end cap thingy. The pen is a slip cap design. It's got a lot of ink on there. Sorry. Okay. Section is interesting. It's gold. It's not extremely smooth, so it gives a nice grip. It's tapered, and it goes up a little bit there, a little bit wider. And then you got another shiny gold ring, because the section itself is matte gold. I think matte gold sections are not for everyone, but on this pen I think it doesn't look out of place for some reason. Then we have the nib. I think Kaigelu, it's a Chinese brand. These are not, you know, insanely expensive pens. I think they do very decent nibs. I actually used it for the first time when I did the sample that you'll see later, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's a nice two-tone nib. Again, has the kangaroo on it. It says Kaigelu. Very decent. Not really flexy, but a little bit of spring. Not a whole lot, but it's definitely there. Pretty nice. And I think it just looks cool with the sort of two-tone thing. Pleasant to hold. Good size, I'd say. You can post it. Then it's definitely a good size for me. I like it. Okay, the other pen. Here we have a Picasso 908. The Picasso 908, let's cover those parts. On top it has a black sort of end cap with a gold little nub on there. I think it's kind of fascinating. On the other end, it has a gold thing with a black nub on there, which makes for a reasonably balanced and interesting pen. The clip is very tight, tighter than on the Kaigelu, but not so tight as to be useless. On top there, it says, it actually has a Picasso face on there, like a cubistic portrait. Gives me an idea. That's right on there, so that's nice. Little gold ring to keep the clip in place. Red cap, red barrel. Again, gold highlights, as with the Kaigelu. I'll hold them side by side again in a second. And then they have the center band, which just says Picasso. Another, and this is very fascinating, this is another slip cap. But look at that. Those look like threads. But the cap does not have any threads. And if you try to, screw it in place, you can try for a long time, but it's not going to do anything. Fishy! I don't know what happened here. It could be that they used a section for another pen which does actually have, a threaded cap. But are these actually threads? It looks like it's just decoration. It's just a bit strange. I mean, I don't know. Something strange going on there. Okay. Tapered barrel. Tapered section. What's going on? I don't know these terms. I need to go to Fountain Pen University again and learn all the terms. So it's slightly tapered, then another gold ring thing. Then we have the nib. If I can't figure out the term for nib, bloody hell. Saturday morning. I guess I had a tough week. It says Picasso, France. Really? This nib came from France? Do I actually see it? I thought this would be a Chinese pen. Listen. Nope, definitely says France. Well, why not? Maybe they're just referring to Picasso. Well, I have no idea. In any case, that's what it says. It also says Picasso, which looks to be the signature of the artist Picasso. And that's all there's to it. Open it up, have a converter. Didn't show you that with the Kaigelu, did I? Well, we're here now. Kaigelu has a converter which has that bloody kangaroo on it again, as well as the word Kaigelu, which is sort of rubbed off. It's there in white markings, but you can easily rub that off. Just a piston type, a screw type piston converter. Same thing here. This one has again the Picasso signature on it, and that's pretty much all there's to it. So the Picasso, compare the two. Well, one thing that's immediately clear is that the Kaigelu, which is on the right here, my right, is definitely beefier. It's a wider pen, has more girth. It's not taller or anything. The pens are pretty much the exact same size. Clearly they have a lot in common. They're both shiny red. They both have gold center bands. They both have fairly nice nibs. As you can see, the nib on the Kaigelu is just a little bit bigger than the nib on the Picasso. They both have sort of gold highlighting detailings in the end. One may well be a little bit heavier than the other. Let's weigh them. Currently they are inked up for what it matters. The Picasso comes in here at about, well, 35 grams. It's just an analog scale. It's not extremely precise, just to give you a rough indication. The in fact, Kaigelu seems to be a little lighter. That's interesting because it's somewhat bigger, just a little bit, but also around the 35 range, maybe 32 grams, something like that. I'm sure that people can measure that more accurately than I can. Now that I know this, I do seem to feel that a little bit. So Picasso seems to be a little heavier, even though it's a little slimmer. Maybe some more metal content or whatever in there. Fascinating. So since the looks are very similar, I guess the only way to decide between these two pens is to ink them up and put them to the paper and see what happens. Because look-wise, I cannot make a decision. If I were to buy one right now, I'd probably say I'd buy the Kaigelu because I like that clip design. I think that's pretty fancy, even though it has a kangaroo on it. The Picasso is not bad too, but I don't really like extremely slim pens. I may have had even more anorexic models, but this is, I like this overall shape a little bit better. And now You ever seen Jeremy Brett play Sherlock Holmes? He had these ecstatic hand motions. I sort of adopted that at some point. Writing sample. That's all there's to it. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Okay, so here we have the Kaigelu 357, and here we have the Picasso 908. So let's have a look at these pens in turn. First we have the Kaigelu. You know that in these shootouts I like to take apart these pens as much as I can. Well, as you can see, you can disassemble the converter. Not sure whether this can go out. No, it looks like that's sort of kept in place. That's fine. Here we have the section, the nib and the feed. You can just pull those out, friction fit. I have a look at the... Yeah, so when you do something like that, not everyone likes doing that, and not, I mean, there's actually a reason for that. What you want to do when you put them back in the section is align them well. Now, do not just force them in any way. Sorry. Have a good look at the section. I'm not sure how well you can see that. Probably you cannot see it at all. But on the inside there is a flat bit. The part here is flat. That's where the bottom end of the section, the bottom end of the feed goes into. Okay, so just so you know. So that way you make sure that everything is aligned well. I have to hold it to the light here. There you go. And that way it fits. And otherwise, you see, it just, the feed won't go in. Now with some pens it will fit, but it's not aligned the way it should be. And here especially, something like this would not be good, because the nib goes in down further. Make sure they're aligned well. They are now, right? The middle of the feed somehow aligns with the, well, not somehow, I mean it aligns with the two tines, the slit between the tines. That's the way you want to have it. Okay, just rub that gently to get some of the grease from my fingers off. Put this back in place. The first thing I notice here is that this is not a very smooth operation. So I'll leave that out for now, put some silicone grease in there. Here we got the other pen, Picasso 908. Cap, barrel, converter. When you try to unscrew this, with some converters it cannot be done. A Waterman converter will break when you do that. But whatever you do, make sure that the piston is not moved all the way down there, because then it can be a little difficult. You see, then I can't unscrew it because it blocks, because it's pushing down there. So make sure it's about halfway in there. You can unscrew it with ease. Off comes that part. Let's separate these things, otherwise I may get mixed up. A little ring, the piston turning knob, and the actual piston. And this moves a lot smoother than with the other pen, so that's okay, right? So you can just take that out. Here we have the section, nib and feed. You can pull those out. The nib on this pen is smaller than that of the Kaigelu. And that's pretty much all there's to it. So, again, I have a good look at, I have to do that in the light, but I don't see any markings here, so I think I can just slide these back in. Sometimes you have a nib that slides in place or sort of clicks in place somewhere in the feed. With this nib, that is not the case. So a guideline, I read that in the book Fountain Pens by Peter Twiddle, that you try to align the shoulders of the feed and the shoulder of the nib. So if you do this, then you would get more flex, but I don't know how this nib would react. It may have flow issues. If you put it in there too far, I'm really exaggerating now, but you know, something like this, then you will just hit the feed on the paper and you will get nasty ink lines on your paper. So this seems to be a good alignment. Very carefully I put it in. Usually what I do when I put a nib and feed in is just twist it a little bit. Then you will feel whether there is a specific way in which the nib and feed want to enter the pen. In this pen it does not seem to be the case. Okay, shoulders are nicely aligned, everything's in there. Again, make sure the nib is pushed in all the way. If it's not, it may leak. You'll get big drops of ink just falling from the pen. Okay, putting this back together. And I said I was going to put some grease in there. This is from the Goulet Pen Company, but you know, silicone grease is silicone grease. You can get this from a number of sources. I like this stuff because you know you can get this at a do-it-yourself store or hardware store. But if you get the wrong grease, you may cement your pen together for the rest of its life. And I know that when I buy it from a pen store, at least I'll get the stuff that I really need. Okay, now I've got this in my finger. Never wipe that in your ink cloth. I've got an old towel here which I use for that purpose. The reason is that silicone grease really hampers ink flow. That's why you use it, right? Look, this is nice and smooth. It hampers ink flow. That's why you use it to seal the threads on a pen you convert to an eyedropper filled pen. That's a lot smoother. Better. Okay. So if you would put that in your ink cloth and you would wipe the nib on that, then you would actually hamper ink flow. If it gets into the feed, you've got a serious issue. Alright, what we need is some ink. We'll go with Waterman, Florida Blue, Serenité, now, whatever. Quick check, no drops of ink flow out, so I assembled the whole thing in the correct manner. I bet you are hoping that I will pull on this and the ink bottle flies all over my desk. Okay, barrel. Kaigelu, and then the same for... I'm running a little low. These bottles are actually made to be put in the sides. I drew up quite some air there. Let's try that again. Welcome to the pen filling channel, where we fill pens 24 hours a day. There we go. I'm afraid that if I were to start a channel in which I ink up pens 24 hours a day, people may actually watch. Oh, BKB, what's going on here? Ink in the threads. Clean it up later. Alright. 2 inked up pens. Time to do a writing sample. Okay, so here we have the Kaigelu 357 Mag... Oh no, wait, it's not a Magnum. Here we have the Picasso 908. Writing. Very nice. I like that pen. It performs well, smooth, maybe a touch of feedback, but not in an unpleasant manner. Picasso. Nice pen, flows well. My impression is that this nib is harder than the Kaigelu nib, therefore feels not necessarily scratchier, but does give a little bit more feedback, I'd say. I'd like to see the line variation these pens offer. So more pressure as I go. Yes, that is some very decent line variation for such a nib. And when I say such a nib, I mean it's not gold, it's not, you know, meant to be flex. That is not particularly bad either, but the Kaigelu seems to give more line variation, just a little bit more, and I think that's what makes me lean towards that nib if I were to pick a favorite. Let's look at wetness. That's a very wet nib, right? You see that this lays down a very nice deep patch of ink. I cap the pen, I talk a bit more, and it's still extremely wet. That's actually the way I like a pen to be. I like a pen to be on the wet side. Let's just blot this a bit. Okay. Picasso. I should probably have Professor Tarquin Danglebury make a guest appearance in one of these videos somehow. Okay, so what we see here is that this is not bad, this is not particularly dry, but it is drier than that pen, right? If I cap it and talk just a bit more and then wipe it, I'm sure it's going to be wet. Oh yeah, you see the difference? This is pretty much dry and this was really, really wet. So that's the difference. Maybe that's why this pen feels a little scratchier. In all, I think these are two nice pens. In this case, I could definitely pick a winner. I would pick the Kaigelu. In fact, I may have to order myself one of these. The Picasso 908 is not a bad pen at all. The only problem is that, as far as I'm concerned, it's a little hard. I noticed that with one of the Auto pens too. This is clearly a cubistic, what do you call that in English? Cubistic portrait. Self-portrait. It's not bad, it's just a little harder. So, winner, Kaigelu 357. And that's all there's to it. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.